Welcome back. Now we'll take a look at some of the more complex consonant sounds in German. We'll see different examples and we'll break down these complex rules until we have simpler ideas that we can work with. Just remember, be on the lookout for other rules we have already covered when we discuss the example words. That'll just help reinforce everything you've learned, and it will help you be on your way to mastering German. Okay, so the first sound we're going to look at here is the f sound, the F sound, as such. And this sound is a bit complex in German. There are several ways to spell it, but don't worry, we'll discuss each one. First of all, mostly it's going to be a normal F. Mostly an F. In the beginning, in the middle, it's going to be an F usually, especially at the beginning. And we'll see why in a second. The next spelling, if there's a second best spelling, it's FF, double F. Double F, and this usually happens in the middle of words. Obviously, it really can't happen at the beginning. You don't see really any words with FF at the beginning, so not at the beginning, but in the middle, it is a good option. The next spelling is a very typical German spelling, V. V for the F sound. It happens in a couple of words, and we'll see examples of how we can figure out when the V is used, but it can represent the F sound, so that's sort of like the third option. PF is also an option. PF. This usually happens at the beginnings of words. Again, there are certain roots with the V and the PF. If you know those roots, those German roots, you can immediately recognize recognize the root, and you can recognize the fact that the F sound is going to be represented with either a V or a PF, depending on the root. And the final option, rarely a W for the F sound, sorry. Again, these five are definitely options, but these two are the best. Mostly an F, then maybe an FF in the middle, and then these three, not so common, but we can figure out when we're going to use each one. So let's look at some examples. For mostly F, again, it's going to be at the beginning a lot, like Fahrenheit, because you're not going to have FF at the beginning. But Fahrenheit, a lot of the words come from like people's names, like this one, but it's still German, so it's going to be an F at the beginning, and there's many words that have F, just an F for in the beginning or in the middle for the F sound. Okay, FF, Schiffli is an example. Schiffli in the middle again. So really, FF is going to be in the middle. F is going to be in the beginning or the middle. That's sort of, the main rules governing these two. But they are, again, the most common ways to spell the F sound. Okay, the V is a pretty typical spelling in German. It's one of those spellings that sets German apart because it's so unusual. Examples are Vorlage, also Vorspiel. The thing is, if it does occur, the V for the F, it's going to be at the beginning. And the way we know that is because the main roots which have the V for the F are for, V-O-R, meaning like, it's the same thing as F-O-R-E in English, meaning before. So this is the root, and also folk, like Volksdeutsche or Volkslied. Let me write one of those down. Volkslied. Okay, so these two are the main roots that are going to, for and folk, that's going to have the V for the F sound. And really, there aren't that many German words, with the exception of these two roots, that have V for the F sound. So it's best to learn all the words with, these two roots in them, where the V is representing the F sound, and then, those are really the only words with V for F. Okay, another similar thing is PF. It's an option. Usually it's going to be with words with the root Pfeffer, P-F-E-F-F-E-R, like Pfeffernuss. Also, there's sometimes it can happen in the middle of words because that root is in there, like Hasenpfeffer. Hasenpfeffer, but really Pfeffer is like the only root where PF is going to be used for the F sound. So if you know all the words with Pfeffer in it, you're pretty much good to go with PF for the F sound. And rarely W, it doesn't happen in too many words, but you know, even if it does happen, usually the words have alternate pronunciations that give the W away. Example of this is Schwärmerei. You know, the word I was eliminated on in my final B, 2012 Scripps National Spelling Bee, but Schwärmerei, the W can be either, an F or a V sound, and we already know that the V sound is going to be, the V sound is going to be represented by a W anyways. That was the first rule we saw in the last video. So if you ask for the alternate pronunciation, you will be sure that this is a W. So yeah, Schwärmerei or Schwärmerei. Schwegel is another example. Schwegel. Now notice how the W's here, they followed the SCH in both cases. That's something to look out for because that might be a reason why the W could be pronounced as an F. So something to you know, look out for. But again, mostly F or FF. Most common ways to spell the F sound, and should be pretty easy to figure out if it's a V, P, F, or W. And these three aren't that common, and these two are. So yeah, should be pretty you know, easy. Again, you can always use your intuition, see which one looks right, because you'll be right most of the time. Like if you imagine the word and you know, you can sort of visualize the word and see what you think it is. Okay, so that concludes F. Okay. But yeah, there's no like one clear-cut way to spell it. So, you know, some of these, you know, sounds have more than one spelling, so it's good that we're discussing, you know, how to figure out, you know, what to use when. Okay? The next sound is the N sound. The good old N sound, N. And the main rule is that it's mostly going to be an N. Mostly an N. Pretty simple. Mostly an N, but there is another way. It could be NN. Could be a double N. Okay, so these two are really the only ways to spell the N sound. Mostly, a lot of words are just going to have N, like Robinsonade. Robinsonade. Now this is also pronounced Robinsonade. It's probably the more German way to pronounce it, Robinsonade. But you have the N twice, representing the N sound. And this is very common, N just for N, you know, very simple. It could be NN though, and the NN usually happens in like mineral and name words. So let me write that. More mineral / you know, names, German name words. The mineral words, the words ending in "ite", there's a lot of words in the dictionary that I have found ending in "ite" that are minerals, but to my knowledge, the spelling bee doesn't really like to ask those words. They might, and you know, now they probably will use a couple with all the changes that are being made, but you know, so you should be careful of those. But usually they don't pop up that often, so not something to worry about too much. Name words can pop up, but they're not a lot of, you know, German names in words. But, you know, there are a couple, so it's best to know them. But some examples with NN are Minnelied. Let me change my color. Minnelied. Now here is an example where your knowledge of German roots could come in handy, because Minne, M-I-N-N-E, means love in German. So if you knew that, you know this is going to have a double N. Again, one way to figure out if it's a double N. Pfennig, another example. Look, there's our PF. This is like one of those rare examples where, you know, it's not Pfeffer, but Pfennig is, you know, NN for the N sound. Again, that PF at the beginning, something to look out for. But, yes, this is also an NN word. Another one is a Schwannoma. Schwannoma. This is a name word. It comes from Schwann. so it has the two N's. Usually, a lot of German words or German names, if they end in the letter N, if they end in it, it's going to be a double N. So, Oma is just the adding, it's a combining form, meaning tumor, but the name is Schwan. So if you know that, and you've probably recognized the fact that a lot of German words or German names end in NN, then you could figure this out and be, know that this is a double N. So again, the roots, the names, those might help you figure out if it's an NN or N, but mostly it's going to be an N. And sometimes it doesn't look right to be an NN. Like in this word, Robinsonade, a double N would not look too good here or here. Like if you just imagine it, it doesn't look too good. So again, you should use that sense, that sixth sense that, it doesn't look too right. So, that's something you can use as well. So pretty much there's a lot of ways to figure out if it's an N or an NN. And usually it's going to be just an N. Okay, our next sound is the P sound. P sound. In German, it's mostly going to be, yep, you guessed it, just a P. Mostly. Usually that's how a lot of the consonants start out. That mostly it's going to be what is expected, or what, the English spelling is. And then the rare ones are usually the ones that, are different. But mostly, yep, it's going to be a P. It could be a double P. Could be a double P. Just like in English. There's not too many rules governing if it's a P or double P. Again, double P won't be at the beginnings of words. So if you hear it at the beginning, it's going to be just a P. In the middle, it could be a PP or a P. So, that's really the only rule per se of these two. Otherwise, not too many rules governing which one it should be. However, there is another spelling. It could perhaps be a B. B for the P sound in German. And this usually happens with our root AB, one of the first stems we saw, meaning like down or away from, up, like AB. So let's look at some examples. Mostly a P. Lip tower is an example. Lip tower. I think it's a kind of cheese, but yeah, lip tower, just a normal P. Double P, doppelganger. Probably a word you've probably heard of, but doppelganger comes from German doppel, meaning double. So we have double P. What a coincidence. But anyways, doppelganger, two P's. With the B, Abgesang is one. Abgesang. Again, we have that root ab, meaning down or away from. Another example is Abseil. So this B doesn't happen too often. Usually it's just going to be with those AB words. For up meaning away from. So if you learn those, pretty much, that's pretty much all of B representing the P sound, and then you're left with P and PP, and should be pretty easy to figure out what it is. Like for example, if this was a double P, it just looks kind of weird. If this was a single P, it would usually, it'll probably be pronounced doppelganger instead of doppelganger. So using those kind of, like logic, I guess, will help you figure out if it's a P or a PP. So these two are more common. Could be a B with the AB words. Really, those are the only ones. So those are the rules governing the P sound. We're going to move on to a very German sound, very common sound in German, which is SH. Sh. The sh sound. Okay. The rule is pretty simple. The typical way to spell this word, again, one of those spellings that that sets German apart from other languages is that it's typically spelled SCH. It's typical, most common way to spell it. So it's typical, it's most common. So it's the best way to spell SH. But as always, there's a catch. It can sometimes be just an S. Sometimes. Just an S, which does happen, but definitely not as often as the SCH. SCH is, more popular in terms of, representing the sh sound than S. But S can happen. Another thing is it's never really going to be SH. So never really SH. I'll talk about this in a second. Let me go back to this. SCH, let's look at examples. There's a lot of words with SCH in German, so, you know, there's a whole lot. So we'll just look at a couple. Example is schlick or schlich. Schlich. Remember, our CH always represents the sound, the guttural K, so schlich, but our SCH for the sh sound. Schloss is an example. Schloss, right there. And Scherenschnitte. Scherenschnitte. This word has it twice. So yeah, it doesn't have to be at just the beginning. It can be in the middle, at the beginning, at the end, basically everywhere. But yeah, Scherenschnitte has it twice. I really like this word. It means like the art of like cutting paper and making like decorations. So yeah, that's an interesting word. But SCH, very, very common. Sometimes gonna be an S, like Springerla. Springerla. If you recognize the root in this word or its definition, it comes from German spring, meaning to jump, somewhat like the English spring. So yeah, that's one way to figure out that it's an S. Those roots are going to help again. But here it's just an S for it. And there are a couple of words where the S is sh, and sometimes they have alternate pronunciations with just the S sound, just the S sound. And if you hear that, you know it's going to be just an S if the alternate pronunciation has a S sound. If not, SCH, you can use SCH if you don't know, and you'll be fine because it's so common. So make sure you ask for the alternate pronunciation. If you hear the S sound at all, you can be sure it's an S. If not, it could be an S, but mostly it's going to be SCH. So you have better chances with SCH. Again, never really SH. I did a search on my Merriam-Webster CD-ROM of all German words containing SH, and they all were actually common English words. Like everyday words, because English has been influenced by German so much that all these English words like fish, I don't remember if fish was on the list, but it was like really simple words, like shake and stuff like that, but they do come from Old High German words, so that's why they showed up on the search. But really, they're really common English words. I don't think they'll really be asked at a spelling bee. And actually, all those English words, the common English words with SH, they came from German words, but those German words had SCH for their respective words, whichever words gave gave way to these English words. So they had SCH. So really, never really SH. Don't have to worry about that in German. Usually going to be SCH or S. Okay. Two main rules for or main spellings for the sh sound. Again, the sh sound is pretty common in German words, so you will run into them. And again, now that we know the rules, we are good to go with those. Alright, our next sound is a little complicated. Not too complicated. We'll try to not make it complicated. It's the T sound. T sound in German. And I'm going to separate this like this. I'm going to do at beginning, or middle. At beginning or middle. Okay, so we're going to look at the sound by where it appears in the word. If it's at the beginning or the middle. Okay, so that's what we're looking at now. At the beginning or the middle. Okay, our rule for that is mostly a T. Mostly just a T. It could be double T. Could be double T. Again, that depends on the roots and the German words inside of that and what they mean. Let's look at some examples first. Just a T. Example is Stummel. Let me write this here. Okay, here you see the T just for the T sound. Really, it couldn't be a TT there, it just doesn't look right. So again, that's one way to figure it out. Also, you could use words in German. Could be TT, such as Mittelhand. Mittelhand, which literally means middle hand. The definition is middle hand, and that's because Mittel in German means middle. So if you know that, TT, it's going to have a double T. Okay. Another example is Albumblatt. album blot. Here it happens at the end, and I know this says beginning or middle, but it's rarely going to be TT at the end. Not common at all, but here's an example. And blot means leaf. So if you know that, you know it's going to be a double T. Okay? So yeah, in the beginning or middle, T or TT, and we've sort of talked about how to figure out which one it is. At the end, or end of a particular part, and we will talk about this, or end of a particular part. Okay, so at the ends of words, or at the ends of particular parts of words, let me make this line better. Okay, it's going to be spelled with a D for the T sound. Okay, let's look at some examples, and I'll explain what this means. First example, Miltsbrot. Here's at the end of the word. So if the T is at the end of the word, it's going to be a D. Another example is Kamerad, which literally means like it's the same. It's the counterpart of the French camarade, meaning friend or comrade. So it was like a war cry or something like that. But that's what kamerad is, and it's pronounced T at the end, so it's spelled with a D, kamerad. So again, these are at the ends of words. That's pretty simple, at the end. If it's at the end of a particular part, well, a lot of German words are sort of like compound words, like this one, Mittelhand, means middle hand, Albumblatt, I know blot means leaf. I'm not sure what album means, but again, it's a compound word, and a lot of German words are compound words. So if the T sound happens at the end of one part of the compound word, the first one, because if it's the second one, it's going to be at the end anyways. Like these words, Miltsbrot. It's part of Bront, but it's at the end of the second part, so it's going to be at the end of the whole thing. But if it's at the end of the first part, it can also be spelled with a D, like Abendmusik. Abendmusik. The root is Abend, and here we know the root Musik is a common ending, but the D is representing the T sound because it's at the end of this particular part, Abend. So I hope that's clear. So in compound words, if the T sound is at the end of the first part, it's going to be a D. If it's at the end of a second part, still going to be D. And if it isn't a compound word and it's just at the end, like Kamerad, it's going to be still a D. So, basically D is going to be used for T at the end or ends of parts. And if it's at the beginning or middle, T or double T. I hope that's clear, because German sort of does follow through on this rule. It won't really trick you because a lot of words follow this rule. Okay, so that's that for T. And our next sound is TS, pronounced ts. So the sound is written like this, TS, pronounced ts. And I will set this up in the same way. We'll do at the beginning or end this time. At the beginning or the end, or end, the beginning or the end. Okay, and the rule for that is it's going to be a Z almost all the time, a Z for the ts sound. And there are several examples. It can be at the beginning or the end, again, just to make sure that's clear. Examples at the beginning: Zwittereien, also Zwinger. Notice how it's the TS at the beginning, Zwinger. At the end, Ersatz, or Fakultanz. So at the beginning or end, it's going to be a Z almost all the time, as you see here and here. Okay, so let me get rid of the examples, just so we can make some room for what it's going to be in the middle. Okay. All right, in the middle, in the middle of words. So in middle. Okay, in the middle, let me fix this E. It's going to be either a Z, so still a Z, or a TZ, or a TZ. And again, neither one is better than the other. They are pretty much equal, 50-50 chance. Examples with Z in the middle are marzipan, marzipan. Another example is Milzbrot, which we've seen already today. Milzbrot. Example with TZ, spritzer, spritzer, and schnitzel, schnitzel. Sorry, that's it, schnitzel. Again, at the beginning it's going to be just a Z, but in the middle it could be either a Z or a TZ. And the way to figure that out is really just whatever kind of makes sense. You have to know the word and you have to learn whether it's a Z or TZ in order to figure it out. If you know certain roots, that could help you. If one doesn't look right at all, completely wrong, then you know it's going to be the other. But really there's no, set in stone sort of rule that says which one it's going to be. So again, you just have to learn those. But if it's at the beginning or the end, you can be sure it's going to be a Z for the TS sound, the TS sound. And again, this sound is very common in German. So yes, you will see it a lot. Okay? Alright. Our final sound, actually not our final sound, but close. We're almost done. Not quite, but almost. Is the Z sound. Now, this sound isn't very popular in German. I mean, it does happen. Just the Z, not with a T or anything. Not ts, but, not TS, but the sound Z. It's not, again, not that common, but if you do run into it, it can be spelled with an S. Can be an S. And the reason for this is, the letter Z usually represents the TS sound, which is what we just saw, the TS sound. So we really don't use Z for the Z sound in German. We use an S, and it's going to be a single S, like Posaune, 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 or Clausewitz. Clausewitz. This is a really good German word. Here you have Z at the end, but again, I said not with the T. So if it's just a Z by itself, it's going to be an S most of the time, like Posaune and Clausewitz. However, the letter S, can also represent the S sound. So let me include that in here. The S sound, this sound, S, it's going to be an S or an SS. And if this looks a little not so clean right now, don't worry, I'll explain in a second. S or SS. So if you hear the Z sound, it's going to be spelled with an S. Okay, as such, Posaune and Clausewitz. If you hear the S sound, the S sound, it's going to be S or SS. Okay, so if you see the letter S in the spelling of a word, that means it can either represent the Z sound or the S sound. The main idea here is that one letter can represent more than one sound, just like in English. With like the letter C, it can represent the K sound, as in cat, and it can represent the S sound, as in city, or center. So that's basically what I'm getting at here, is that the S, the letter S in German, can either represent the Z sound, Posaune, Clausewitz, or the S can also represent the S sound, as in Volkslied. Volkslied. Another option for the spelling is SS, which isn't that common. Example is Beckmesser. You would just have to know the word or the root again to figure it out. Again, SS is not too common in German, so the main point here is we're focusing on the S. The letter S can represent the Z sound, Posaune, Clausewitz, or the S sound, as in Volkslied. So if you hear if you hear any of these sounds, it's going to be with an S, okay? And because we're going to be spelling most of the time, we're going to be given the sound and we're going to spell the letter, say the letter, we don't have to worry too much about the reverse. We just have to worry about if we hear the Z sound or the S sound, it's going to be spelled with an S, okay? So we don't have to worry about if we see this word, is it pronounced posauna or posauna? We always have a dictionary to help us so we can look that up. And we're not going to be doing that at the competition for sure. We're going to spell. We're not going to ask people to spell. So yes, our main point is if you hear Z or S in German, it's going to be spelled with an S, either way. Or it could be SS for the S sound, but again, that's not too common. Okay? Alright, now our final sound. Actually, final sounds. Bunch these together. The sounds are KW, kwa, KV, kv, KF, kf, at the beginnings of words. At beginnings. At beginnings of words. Okay, so very, very specific. If you have kwa, kva, or kfa at the beginnings of words, does not happen too often. There are probably less than 5 words where, these conditions are met, kwa, kva, or kfa at the beginnings of words. But if you do run into it, it's going to be spelled with the QU in German. QU, as in Querflirta. Querflirta. Now this is KW, or Quersprung. Quersprung. Now this is KV, and it's also Quersprung with the KF. So it's both. It's Quersprung and Quersprung. But again, if you run into qua, kva, kva at the beginning of words, it's going to be a QU. That's a pretty simple rule to finish up our consonants on. So again, you're not going to run into this too often, but just in case you run into either of these words, you know what it's going to be now. It's going to be a QU, okay? So this concludes our consonants in German. As you saw, some of them were a little complex, but hopefully we figured out when to use certain spelling. Again, your knowledge of roots, German words, your intuition will help you figuring that out. And in the next video, we will add a final touch to German. We will look at our 10 review words and finish up German. So I hope to see you in the next video.